Okay, so this would be some of my spooky, wicked, and weird stories. First off, the city I live in, haunted. Definitely. Most cities are, so, there's that disclaimer right there. The area of town that I live in is built partially on an old native burial ground. There's a shocker for you, right? Because a lot of Canadian places are. The street that we lived on growing up, myself, two of the across the street neighbors, and the woman who lived right next door to us, we all had really crazy experiences, just really out there, things that we couldn't explain happen. Start with one of the neighbors from across the street. They kept hearing this banging coming from their basement, and as far as I know, they never figured it out. They had their pipes checked, they had their furnace checked. I think they replaced it 4 or 5 times over the years that we knew them. Nothing ever stopped whatever this banging noise was. I know I heard somewhere that ghosts supposedly will bang on walls. Okay. My friend's dad, he had this strange scratching coming from the freezer in the kitchen for like 2 years straight. He had that thing replaced about 4 times. The first time it ever happened, he thought maybe the cat had gotten into the freezer when he wasn't looking. And that wasn't the case. But he never did get to the bottom of what was making that scratching noise. The lady who lived next to us, she complained of a smell all the time coming from her basement. She thought it was the pipes, the sewers. She had them redone. She had the sewers cleaned every couple of months, like the drainage, because if it did rain, sometimes the basements in our area would flood and you get, the sewer. But it was never the cause of whatever the smell was. She eventually left. She couldn't hack it anymore, and she left. And what the next people who moved in found out was that house, back in the late 60s through to the 80s, had been used as a undertaker's house. Is the word mortuary? Possibly. But an undertaker had lived there, and sometimes he would work on the bodies in the house. So, that in itself is a little, and then there was our house. My parents never 100% confirmed what my sister and I believed, and they never 100% did not. But we believed that the people who lived in the house before us in the late 60s committed suicide. We have no proof other than there was stuff in the walls when we moved in that was just, there was toys and kids' things shoved into the walls. So draw your own conclusion on that one. We, over the years, from my sister had an experience with a Ouija board that left bruises on her neck. There was her best friend at the time, and myself, and we were in the kitchen at the house using a Ouija board, and my sister's friend took her hands off. I took my hands off thinking my sister was going to, but my sister kept her hand on it. And then she sat bolt upright in this state of not just fear, but paralyzing fear, screaming, just one long scream, tears running down her face. When she finally took her hand off, she said she felt like somebody had been strangling her. And sure enough, there was bruises in the opposite direction of what she said it felt like. You would think that that would keep her from using a Ouija board, but it did not. That friend of hers never came around. That was the last time we ever saw her. But a couple years later, my sister, me, and a couple of our friends were sitting in the basement, and this would put me 22, 23 years old. So we were sitting in the basement, and we had a Ouija board going, and my sister said, "Oh, well, it's freezing down here. I wish I had brought a sweater." And all of a sudden, this heater came on, one that you had to plug in, and that kind of freaked us out. But we all kind of like, oh, well, it must be on a timer. Logic kicked in. It must be on a timer or something. So a little while later, we were all done with the Ouija board, and we packed it up. My sister's like, "Oh, don't forget to turn off the heater." I went to go turn it off. It wasn't plugged in. I ran out of the basement like a bat out of hell, completely freaking out. None of us went into the basement again for like 2 weeks. We never did figure it out, other than there's something in the house. Our dog died in 1992. I'm jumping ahead to another story here. In 1992, our family dog died in the back of porch of the house. People used to say that they could hear her years later going up and down the stairs, her dog collar rattling, and there was this one chair she used to sit in all the time. And they could swear that the dog was jumping up into the chair and turning around the 4 times she used to turn around, making all the springs squeak. We'd like to think that she was looking out for us, that she stayed in the house. I'm sure she probably stayed attached to the house long after we left it. Okay, jumping ahead to 2002. In that time frame of my life, I was friends with this couple who were studying to become shaman. And there were countless things that I witnessed with them. One of those, they had done a ritual. I don't know what the ritual was, but they had done a ritual one night, and they called me up, and they're like, "Can you come over? We're locked out of the house." "What do you mean you're locked out of the house?" Like, we were doing a circle group thing, and people ran in the middle of it, and now there's like this invisible dog or something in the basement. Okay, first of all, I didn't believe them, and then, my second thought was, what the hell am I supposed to do about that? Sure enough, there were these people did not have pets at all whatsoever, no pets. There were large scratches on their basement door from the inside of the basement, and then there was large scratches, like claw marks, up the length of their kitchen door that nobody could explain. When you went into the basement, you could feel something kind of following you around. And if you were really, really quiet, you could hear breathing. That was not you. This entity, for lack of a better word, harassed them for months. And they did something else to try to get rid of it. I, to this day, do not know what it was. But they ended up kind of switching personalities. He had blue eyes. She had brown eyes. In the course of doing whatever ritual they were doing, she started to have one eye one color, and he started to have one eye one color. And at first I thought, okay, they're screwing around with me, putting in contacts or something. That wasn't the case. She started having his mannerisms and his speech pattern, and he started having her mannerisms and speech patterns. And he told me something that only she knew, that she had witnessed in my life, that I know for a fact she did not tell anybody. But yet he was able to give it to me detail by detail by detail. And this was his proof that they had somehow switched personalities. And I would love to know how that happened. I really would. There was an ex-boyfriend of mine in 2006 who unwittingly channeled something. He blacked out and told me he didn't remember a thing, but it scared the hell out of me. And it was like he had a hologram over his face. That is probably the freakiest of all the things I've experienced. Granted, I would love to be able to do some of the things that the people around me have done. I have tried. I can't. I'm just kind of soaking up their